Hey Reddit. I don't know where to start, but I feel like I'm drowning in this situation. I'm hoping some of you can help me process everything. I'm completely lost and don't know what to do next. My wife, Karen, 32, and I have been married for 8 years. We have a 5-year-old son, and for all intents and purposes, our life has been pretty normal, nothing out of the ordinary. Or at least, that's what I thought. I've always trusted Karen. She's been a great wife and mother, and we've had our ups and downs, but I honestly believed our relationship was solid. I work as an accountant, and she works in marketing. She travels for work every now and then, and I always trusted her. I mean, what reason would I have not to? But last weekend, everything changed. Let me explain how it all happened. It all started with a text she sent. I know, snooping isn't a healthy thing to do, but I had a gut feeling something was off. We've always shared our phones in the past, and neither of us really hides anything. So when I noticed her phone on the kitchen counter with the screen unlocked, I thought I'd take a quick look at the message from the random number she had received. It was from a guy named Mark, and I didn't recognize the name. I opened it, hoping to find just some harmless work-related conversation, but instead, I found something that stopped me in my tracks. The text was flirtatious, but not just any flirtation. These messages were intimate, filled with inside jokes, and a lot of "I can't wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. I didn't overreact right then and there. I didn't want to jump to conclusions without knowing more, so I kept quiet. But I was haunted by it for days. Every little thing Karen did seemed like a red flag after that. She was a bit more distant, working late hours, and she went on a weekend business trip that she said was last minute. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt something wasn't adding up. That weekend, she left for her business trip. I didn't question it because she had been telling me about the event for a while. But there was something strange about her leaving this time. She acted a little too nervous. She rushed out the door, leaving behind a few things that she normally wouldn't have. It wasn't until she left that I thought to check her bag. I told myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling. She had gone to a hotel, about an hour away, and I didn't think twice about it at first. I didn't think she had a reason to lie about the trip. But as I started checking the room after she left, my suspicions grew. I came across a folded shirt that definitely didn't belong to her. The shirt wasn't mine, and it wasn't anything I had ever seen her wear. It was a plain white button-up with a logo that didn't seem familiar. At first, I thought it might have been an accidental mix-up with her luggage. Maybe she had taken it by mistake. But when I picked it up, I realized that the shirt smelled different, distinctly like another man's cologne. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. It was the smell that did it. It wasn't the typical scent that I'd ever associated with Karen. It smelled fresh, but masculine, like something a guy would wear after a shower, not the fragrance I was used to from her. I looked at the shirt again, and then at the text messages from the guy named Mark. My heart pounded in my chest, and everything I had been brushing off in my mind suddenly clicked. I didn't know how long the affair had been going on, but this was no mistake. She had been seeing someone else. I didn't confront her right away. I wasn't ready for that. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. I kept the shirt hidden, but my mind was racing. The gut feeling I had for the past few weeks had suddenly been confirmed. I had no idea what to do next, but I knew that I couldn't let this go without finding the truth. I told myself I had to confront Karen, but I didn't want to do it until I knew more. I had to be sure. I started looking for more evidence, checking her email, her phone, and trying to piece things together. I couldn't help myself. I know it wasn't healthy to snoop, but I was desperate. I wasn't sure if I would be able to handle the truth, but the more I found, the clearer it became that Karen was having an affair. She came back from the trip on Sunday night, looking more tired than usual. But the guilt was written all over her face. I tried to act normal, but my mind was buzzing with everything I had learned. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in a nightmare. I had to face the truth, but I wasn't sure if I could. I had no idea how to confront her without losing it, without unraveling everything I thought I knew about our life. The days after I discovered the shirt and the texts were some of the longest of my life. Every time I looked at Karen, I could barely hold back the thoughts racing in my head. Was I being paranoid? Or was I just trying to avoid confronting the truth that was right in front of me? I had to admit that the more I thought about it, the more everything started to make sense. Those little changes in her behavior, the sudden business trips, the late nights working. It wasn't adding up. I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong. I couldn't keep acting like our life was normal. I had to talk to her. But I also didn't want to start a confrontation without being certain. I was terrified of what I might find out, but more than anything, I was terrified of losing everything I thought I knew about our life together. It was Thursday evening when she came home after work, and I could tell she was distracted. She hadn't even noticed that I had already laid the shirt out on the couch, right where she could see it. I was hoping she'd recognize it and, for once, come clean. But when she walked through the door, her eyes immediately darted toward the shirt. She froze. I could see her mind racing as she tried to figure out what to say. "Where did you find that?" she asked, her voice shaky. I took a deep breath and walked over to her, trying to stay calm. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. "It was in your suitcase. The same suitcase you took on your weekend trip." She opened her mouth as if to respond, but no words came out. I could see the guilt written all over her face, and it made my heart ache. I didn't want to accuse her, but the evidence was staring at us. "Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I need to know. Is there something you're not telling me? Something more going on than just a business trip?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked down at the shirt. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't want you to find out this way. But yes, I've been seeing someone else. His name is Mark. I didn't mean for this to happen, and I am so sorry." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't the surprise of the affair, it was the fact that she was admitting it, standing there in front of me, tears running down her face. My heart was shattered, and the air around us felt suffocating. "Why?" I whispered, struggling to understand. "Why not talk to me? Why didn't you come to me when things started to feel off? Why did you lie?" She collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. "I don't know. I've been so miserable for months. I felt like you weren't there for me. You've been so focused on your work, and I felt so alone. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could just talk to him and get some attention, get some affection. I never imagined it would go this far." My mind was reeling. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that the woman I thought I knew, my partner, my best friend, was telling me that she had been living a double life, that she had betrayed me with someone else, and I had been so blind to it. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, though it felt like a roar in my mind. She looked up at me, and for a moment, I thought she was going to lie. But then she shook her head slowly. "I don't know. I don't think so. I thought I loved him at first, but I know I was just looking for something that was missing between us. I don't love him the way I love you, but I know I've hurt you in a way I can't take back." The words didn't feel like enough. I wanted to scream at her, to ask how she could do this to me, to our family, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was paralyzed by the hurt, by the realization that everything I thought I knew about our life was a lie. But instead of lashing out, I just sat there, trying to process everything she had said. I looked at the shirt again, the one that had opened up this painful conversation, and then I looked at her. She was still crying, still shaking with guilt, but it didn't change the fact that she had made this choice. It didn't change the fact that she had kept this secret from me for so long. I took a deep breath. "What happens now, Karen? What do we do?" She wiped her eyes and nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm willing to go to therapy. I'm willing to do the hard work to fix this. But I know it's up to you if we even have a chance to fix it." I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I could forgive her. I wasn't sure if I could get past this. The hurt was still so fresh, and the idea of rebuilding trust seemed impossible. But at the same time, I didn't know if I was ready to walk away either. I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. I needed time to think, time to figure out if this was something we could overcome, or if it was too broken to fix. The days following our confrontation were a blur. After Karen admitted to the affair, everything felt different. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep at night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, and all I could hear were her words echoing in my head. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." But the truth is, I didn't know how to process the pain. The betrayal had shaken me to my core. I had so many questions, but I was afraid to ask them. How could I trust her again? How could I ever look at her the same way? And most importantly, could I forgive her for what she had done? Karen had promised to do everything it would take to make things right. She said she would cut off all contact with Mark, and she even suggested couples therapy. But as much as I wanted to believe her, the thought of sitting in therapy with her, working through this pain together, felt impossible. How do you fix something that feels so broken? We went on as though nothing had changed, except everything had changed. We still shared meals, we still spoke to each other, but there was this awkward tension between us. A silence that neither of us could fill. We had been married for almost 8 years, and in an instant, everything felt foreign. The house felt empty, despite the fact that we were both living in it. I spent a lot of time reflecting on the past, the things I might have missed, and the things I wish I had done differently. Was this my fault? Was I so wrapped up in my work that I neglected her? But no matter how much I tried to make sense of it, I couldn't avoid the cold truth. She chose to step outside our marriage. She chose to betray me, and I couldn't escape the image of her with someone else. It was one night, about 4 days after our confrontation, that I couldn't take it anymore. The tension, the confusion, it was too much. I had to face this head on, not just for me, but for the future of our family. Our son had started noticing something was off between us. He asked why Mommy and Daddy weren't laughing together anymore, and it tore me apart. I had to decide if we were going to work through this or if we were better off apart. Karen and I sat down that evening after dinner, both of us avoiding eye contact at first. She was waiting for me to say something, waiting for me to make the first move. But I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay. I had to speak up. Karen, I started, my voice shaky but firm. I've been thinking a lot, and I need to know if you're truly ready to do whatever it takes to fix this. Because I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I can get past this. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with sorrow. I understand, she said softly, and I'm willing to do whatever you need. If you want space, if you want to talk more, if you want me to get therapy, I'll do it. I know I've hurt you, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'm worth your trust. I looked at her, trying to keep my emotions in check. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I'll ever see you the same way. This isn't something that's just going to go away. It's a wound that won't heal overnight. Karen reached out, taking my hand. I know it's going to take time. I know it's going to hurt. But I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that I'm here, that I'm committed to fixing what I broke. Please, don't walk away from us without giving me a chance. I sat there in silence, her words sinking in. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, not by a long shot. The hurt was too fresh, too raw. But I could see that she was genuinely remorseful. Maybe that was enough to start the process of healing. Maybe, for the first time in a long time, I needed to stop focusing on the past and start thinking about the future. I'm not promising that I'll forgive you today, or tomorrow, or even next week, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to go to therapy to work through this. I'm not ready to give up on us, but I need time. I need you to understand that I can't just forget what happened. It's going to take time for me to heal. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I understand. And I'll wait. I'll wait as long as you need. For the first time in days, I felt a small glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. We were both broken, but maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild together. The weeks after our conversation were an emotional roller coaster. Karen and I were trying to make it work, taking baby steps toward rebuilding what had been broken. We started attending therapy together, but every session felt like peeling away layers of a wound that hadn't healed yet. The pain didn't just vanish because we were in the same room, trying to work things out. The hurt, the betrayal, it was still there, simmering beneath the surface, no matter how much we talked. Karen was doing everything she could. She was open, transparent, and was constantly reassuring me that she was here, that she wasn't going anywhere. She kept saying, I'm doing the work, and I'll prove to you that I'm committed to us. She was even keeping a journal, as suggested by our therapist, to reflect on what had led her to make the choices she did. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this would never feel right again. I couldn't stop thinking about her affair, about her lying to me, about her lying to us. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, when I replayed every moment in my head, trying to figure out where I went wrong, where we went wrong. Could I have seen it coming? Should I have been more attentive? Was I too focused on work, too absorbed in my own routine? I found myself feeling a deep sense of guilt for things I hadn't done, and that only made everything worse. But in my gut, I knew this wasn't all my fault. No matter how much I beat myself up over it, she made the choice to betray me. She made the choice to step outside of our marriage. One evening, Karen asked me if I thought we were making progress. I wanted to be honest with her, but I didn't want to hurt her more than I already had. I don't know, I said quietly, looking at her. I feel like we're stuck in a loop. You're doing everything right, but it doesn't feel like enough. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. And I don't know when or if I'll be able to forgive you completely. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. I know it's not going to happen overnight, and I'm not asking for that. I just need you to know I'm here, and I'll wait. I'll wait for as long as it takes. It hurt to hear that, and I hated myself for not being able to give her the reassurance she needed. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her. How could I, when I still saw the remnants of what she had done every time I looked at her? I felt like a part of me was missing, and I didn't know if it could be repaired. About a month after we started therapy, something changed. It wasn't a big moment, and it certainly wasn't a magical fix. But it was a shift, a tiny, almost imperceptible change that gave me a little hope that we could make it through this. We were at home one night, just the two of us, sitting on the couch watching TV. It was a quiet night, the kind we used to have before everything fell apart. I was surprised that I felt comfortable enough to just sit there with her. For the first time in a while, I wasn't consumed with anger or the feeling of betrayal. I wasn't thinking about the affair or checking her phone or wondering where she was every time she left the room. We didn't talk about the affair that night. We didn't bring up the therapy, the anger, or even the past. For once, it was just us, sharing space without the constant reminder of what had happened. And for the first time, I realized that I was starting to see her again, not as the woman who had hurt me, but as the person I had married, the person I had loved for years. Later that evening, she turned to me, a slight smile on her face. I know it's been hard, and I'm sorry that it's taking so long, but I want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I want to rebuild. I just need you to tell me what you need from me to make this work. I looked at her for a long time, trying to figure out what I needed to say. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't even know if I could fully forgive her. But something about her words, the way she was looking at me, made me believe that maybe we weren't too far gone. Maybe we could rebuild. Maybe it would take time. Maybe it would take a lot of work. But maybe, just maybe, we could get there. I don't know yet, I said quietly, but I'll keep trying. I'll keep working on this with you. It's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to try. She smiled, and I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. It wasn't the big, dramatic kind of hope, but the kind of hope that comes from small steps forward. It felt like maybe, just maybe, we could get through this. Maybe, after all the pain and all the heartbreak, we could find our way back to each other. As the weeks went on, the reality of what had happened settled in. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the situation hanging between Karen and me, even though we tried to push it aside. We were still attending therapy, but each session felt like we were digging into a wound that would never truly heal. It hurt to talk about it, and yet, it was necessary. One of the things our therapist had mentioned was patience. She told us both that rebuilding trust wouldn't be a quick process, that it would take time and a lot of effort from both sides. I knew this. I understood it. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two very different things. There were days when I felt like I couldn't go on, days when I was so consumed by anger and hurt that I could barely look at Karen without remembering everything. But there were also days when I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who cared deeply for me, the one who wasn't just a stranger in my house but still, in some ways, my partner. The problem was, those days were few and far between. It was another Friday night, and I was doing the usual, getting the kids ready for bed, tidying up the house, trying to maintain some normalcy. But inside, I felt like I was falling apart. Karen was in the kitchen, prepping dinner, humming lightly to herself. She seemed fine. She seemed like the same person I had married, and yet, every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the affair. I hadn't fully processed the impact of the affair on our marriage. It wasn't just the physical betrayal, it was the emotional distance that followed. How could I trust her again when she had turned to someone else for that kind of connection? How could I rely on her when the very foundation of our relationship had been shattered? That night, as I sat at the dinner table, I watched her, wondering if she truly understood the gravity of what she had done. It was hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that she had been so careless with our marriage. But what hurt even more was the fact that she seemed so ready to move on. She was doing everything in her power to rebuild, but what about me? What about my needs? When would I be able to look at her without the resentment? The truth hit me. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I wasn't ready to move on. And worse yet, I was afraid that maybe I never would be. I don't know what triggered it, but that night, after the kids were in bed, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, and suddenly, I just exploded. All the emotions that had been bottled up inside me for weeks spilled out in a torrent. I turned to Karen, my voice shaking with anger, and I said, "You really think we can just go back to the way things were, don't you? That you can just apologize and fix everything? You've been working so hard to show me how sorry you are, but it's not enough. I'm not enough. And I don't think I'll ever be enough for you again." Karen froze. I saw the pain in her eyes, but in that moment, I didn't care. The hurt I felt was so overwhelming that I couldn't contain it anymore. Do you even understand what you've done to us? To me. I shouted. How do I even look at you the same way when I know what you did? She stood there in silence for a long moment, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know how to fix this, she said quietly, her voice breaking. I don't know how to make it right. But I want to. I need to. And I need you to give me the chance to prove it. It was then that I realized something important. We had both been living in this limbo, both of us holding onto the pieces of our broken marriage, trying to make something work that might never be the same again. Karen was fighting for us, fighting for me, but I wasn't sure I was ready to fight for her. I wasn't sure I could ever see her the same way again. But I couldn't walk away. Not yet. The next few days were a blur. We didn't speak much, not about the affair. I spent time thinking, not just about what she had done, but about what I needed moving forward. I thought about the life we had before everything fell apart, the good times, the shared memories. I realized that I still loved her. The betrayal hurt like nothing I had ever felt before, but the love was still there. Maybe it wasn't the same kind of love we once had, but it was there. We sat down together that weekend and had another long conversation. This time, it wasn't about accusations or blame. It was about our future. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you, Karen, I said, my voice low. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to work through this, for the sake of our family, for the sake of us. I'm not promising anything, and I'm not pretending that everything's fine. But I can't let go of what we had. I can't just walk away from our life together. She looked at me, her face filled with gratitude and guilt, and nodded. I'll wait. I'll wait for as long as it takes. I'll keep working to prove that I can be the partner you deserve. I wasn't sure where this road would lead, but at that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. Maybe we could find a way forward, even if it was slow, even if it was difficult. But for now, we were taking it one day at a time. As the weeks went by, I found myself in an emotional tug-of-war. Some days felt like progress. Karen and I would talk openly, and it seemed like we were moving in the right direction. Other days, the weight of the betrayal would crash down on me again, and I'd feel completely overwhelmed. It wasn't easy for either of us, but we were both trying. She was doing everything she could to rebuild the trust that had been shattered, and I was trying, really trying to give her a chance. But then, one Friday evening, a setback occurred that threw everything into chaos again. I was working late that night, but Karen had come home early. I had assumed that she'd been spending the evening with the kids, and I wasn't even thinking about her phone. I didn't feel the need to snoop anymore. We had agreed on full transparency, and I trusted her most of the time. But as I walked past the living room to get a drink, I noticed her phone was on the coffee table, face up. The screen was lit, and a new notification had popped up. I don't know what made me pause. It wasn't like me to check her phone anymore, but in that moment, I felt a strange pull. I looked at the message, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was from Mark. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Let's make it special. I miss you so much. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't look away from the screen. I didn't even have time to process it fully before Karen walked into the room and saw me holding her phone. What's going on? She asked, her voice too calm, too controlled. I could see the fear in her eyes before she even spoke. I didn't know what to say. My thoughts were racing. My mind couldn't catch up with what I was reading. I hadn't expected this. I had thought we were past this, that we were healing. But here it was again, Mark's name, Mark's message, right there on her phone. I handed her the phone, my hands shaking. Why is he texting you, Karen? I asked, the hurt and confusion clear in my voice. I thought you said you cut him out of your life. I thought you said you were done. Her face went pale as she looked at the message, then back at me. The color drained from her face. I didn't mean to hurt you again, she whispered. I didn't want you to find out this way. I've been trying to move on, but I'm not strong enough yet. I still think about him sometimes. I'm sorry. The words felt like a slap in the face. I stood there, frozen, my mind spinning with everything that had happened over the past few weeks, the progress we had made, the conversations we had had about rebuilding, about trust. And now, all of it felt like a lie. All the promises she made felt like empty words. You told me you were cutting him out of your life, I said, barely able to get the words out. You told me you were committed to us. And now I find out this? How long has this been going on, Karen? She started crying, her shoulders shaking with guilt. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you again. I really did try to end it, but I haven't fully let go of him. I didn't know how to stop feeling what I felt. I don't want to lose you, but I'm still struggling with what happened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say everything I was feeling, all the hurt and anger that was building up inside me. But I couldn't find the words. It was as if I was drowning in my own emotions, and nothing I said would fix it. I took a step back, trying to gather myself, but I couldn't breathe. Everything we had been working on, all the progress, it felt like it was slipping away in an instant. I spent the next few hours in a daze. Karen was pleading with me, trying to explain herself, trying to make me understand that she wasn't actively seeing Mark, but that the emotional pull was still there. She said she hadn't been in contact with him in weeks, but that message proved otherwise. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she hadn't truly cut him out of her life, or the fact that she hadn't been honest with me about her lingering feelings for him. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to pack my things and leave. I didn't think I could handle this pain anymore. But something kept me there. Some part of me that still wanted to believe, still wanted to fight for us, for our family. But I couldn't shake the doubt, the hurt, the realization that maybe she wasn't ready to give up on him, even though she had promised us, that she was committed to making this right. The next morning, I woke up to Karen sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for me to speak, waiting for me to make a decision. I could see the worry in her eyes, and I could feel her guilt in every movement. "Do you still want to try, Jeremy?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "Do you think we can get past this?" I didn't have an answer right away. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild again, that we could move forward and leave this all behind. But a part of me knew that something had shifted, something deep inside me that would never be the same again. "I don't know," I said, finally finding my voice. "I really don't know." I didn't want to make any decisions in that moment. I needed space, time, to figure out what I really wanted. And as much as I loved her, I couldn't ignore the fact that I was still hurting, still struggling to trust her. The days that followed the discovery of the text message were some of the most painful I've ever experienced. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. I tried to talk to friends, but I was too ashamed. I couldn't tell anyone what had really happened. The one person I wanted to lean on, Karen, felt like the one person I couldn't trust. It was as if everything we had worked for had been wiped away in a single moment. I spent the next few days barely talking to her. Karen kept apologizing, promising me that she was done with Mark for good, that she hadn't been seeing him. She kept saying that she was still struggling with the emotional baggage from their affair, and that's why it was so hard to fully let go. But hearing her words didn't make the hurt go away. It made everything feel like an even bigger lie. Our conversations were tense and filled with silence. Our son, who had started asking why Mommy and Daddy weren't laughing together anymore, only made things worse. I hated myself for not knowing how to fix this, for not being strong enough to make a decision. Was I supposed to forgive her again? Was I supposed to let her in after everything that had happened? Or was this the moment I walked away from the only life I had ever known? It wasn't until Sunday evening, when Karen and I found ourselves sitting across from each other in the living room, that we had the talk we both needed to have. She had been giving me space, as I asked, but we both knew that silence wasn't the answer. We needed to talk about what had happened and where we were going from here. "I can't keep pretending like everything is okay," I said, breaking the silence. "The truth is, I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever trust you again." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I don't deserve forgiveness, Jeremy. I understand that. I've hurt you so much, and I've been so selfish. I've made mistakes, and I've been weak. But I need you to know that I'm trying. I'm not just saying it, I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can to fix this. I will do whatever it takes to show you I can be the wife you deserve. But I can't do it alone." I could hear the desperation in her voice, and I could see the pain in her eyes. She had been asking for forgiveness, but it wasn't just for herself. It was for us. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I had to admit that I was tired of living in limbo. I was tired of carrying the weight of my anger around like a burden I couldn't put down. "I'm not saying I'll forgive you today," I said slowly, "but I'm willing to give this a real chance. I'm willing to try, Karen. I'm willing to work through this if you're truly committed to making things right." She looked at me, her eyes filled with hope. "I'll do anything, Jeremy. I'll prove to you, every day, that I'm worthy of your trust. I'll prove to you that I love you, that this is the life I want. I don't want anyone else. I want us." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but the question still lingered in my mind. Could I ever truly trust her again? I didn't know. But the small sliver of hope I had left made me want to try. We agreed that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be moments of doubt, moments of hurt, and moments when it felt impossible to move forward. But I realized that we both had to do the hard work. Rebuilding our marriage wouldn't happen overnight, but maybe it was worth trying to salvage. I wasn't making promises. I wasn't saying that everything would go back to normal. I was just saying that I was willing to fight for it, for her, for me, and for the family we had built. The next day, we decided to move forward with therapy and give ourselves a fresh start. We knew that rebuilding trust wasn't about forgetting the past, but about learning to live with it, accepting it, and taking it one step at a time. There would be hard days, and there would be days when it felt like we had made no progress at all. But maybe that's what relationships are: two people trying, failing, and then trying again. I wasn't sure if we could heal, but I knew that I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. And that, in itself, felt like a step in the right direction. The following weeks were a blur of mixed emotions. Some days felt like huge victories. Karen and I would sit together, talk honestly, and laugh like we used to. Other days, it felt like we were strangers, struggling to find our way back to each other. I still had moments when the anger would surge up, when I couldn't forget what had happened. But there were other moments, small moments, when I saw the woman I married. When I remembered the love that we shared before everything fell apart. We continued our therapy, both individually and together, working through the issues that had caused so much pain. Karen was doing the work, but I knew it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me, too. It was about me learning to trust again, learning to let go of the past, and deciding if I wanted to give her that chance. I realized something important. This wasn't just about her mistakes. This was about us finding our way back to something real. It wasn't going to be easy, and I didn't know if I could ever fully trust her again, but I wasn't ready to give up on us. We had a long road ahead, but I was willing to take it. The future is uncertain, but for the first time in a while, I felt like there was hope for us. Maybe it wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a step toward healing.